9:14. We're going to be having a rainy night tonight here in the Alton, St. Louis metropolitan area and beyond. Dan, there's no better organization, no better group of people to talk to us about these type of severe weather events than hyperlocal extreme weather. And for the first time in a long time, I know, where have we been with the Zoom guests? We've had a lot of phone calls. Well, Jenny Clark joins us from Zoom. Jenny, how are we doing today?
It's just one of those days where like you can just feel the buzz in the air, especially like in the weather world. So
well, and to me, it's like, and be sure to tell me if I'm wrong, but like for these type of events, especially with winter watches and severe storms, this is like the World Series for meteorologists, you know?
Yeah, it really is. I was just looking. So the last time St. Louis was in a level 4 moderate risk was 2018. Wow. So it's been a hot minute since we've had like kind of just these perfect conditions. And I hate to use the word excited, right? Because, like no weather nerd wants to see like, destruction and death and bad things. But at the same time, like it's completely fascinating. And you don't see these days very often.
No, and that's for sure. And, whenever I walked outside today, just here in Alton, Jenny, the weather, the air is just so stagnant right now. And it's like, I don't know what the feeling's like. I don't have the arthritis in the knees yet or anything to know. But yeah, it did feel very eerie that we are going to get something. And I want to ask you, before we do the deep dive into this, give us a little bit of background on, your experience in weather and how you joined up with Hyperlocal.
So basically I've just been a lifelong science nerd. That just kind of catapulted into, I took my first storm spotting training in high school. I won't say how long ago, a very long time ago. And so, but since then I started out my college degree in atmospheric science. Cool. And it's basically a double major in physics and math. And the math just killed me. Like I went to tutoring every day. I could not get past calculus. So anyway, I kind of pivoted
just
to
not to cut you off. I couldn't get past algebra 2. So it's all good. No judging here.
Yeah. So anyways, I kind of pivoted to education. My degree is actually in education. I've taught from preschool to high school, science and everything kind of in between. The past handful of years, I've been a stay-at-home mom. And then I started substitute teaching last year, but then surprise baby number 4 came along. He's sleeping over there, by the way.
Awesome.
So I'm stay-at-home mom again. So, but yeah, just I would say I'm just a very huge nerd, and I love to geek out over all things meteorology.
Well, and that's really, really cool. And by the way, stay-at-home mom, that might be a tougher job than being a substitute teacher, but and anything else you've done. But with that being said, how did you connect with Chad? Did you guys kind of know each other in passing, or was this kind of a spur of the moment?
Yeah. So basically, how anytime you get into a hobby, you start kind of running in the same circles with people, and especially online, you start seeing the same names kind of pop up when you're chatting. I honestly cannot remember when I first saw Hyperlocal's page, but I got on there and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I think I just started commenting a lot on posts. And I think Chad was just like, who is this girl? What is she doing? And and then from there, we kind of made, a group of us super nerds that just are always thinking about the weather. And a little bit after that, he asked, hey, you know what? I think I want to make this team. Would you be on it? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to ask me to be on your team? So I was pretty stoked about that.
Well, and that's really insightful. And that's what I love about you guys at Hyperlocal Weather. You guys always have, there's a background there. There's always been some studying that you guys have done. And you guys have been very, very on the ball of the last couple of years. And nobody can take that away from you guys. Now, with that being said, we are talking about the severe storm warnings that are throughout the area today. And right off the bat, what are you seeing in these reports? I mean, I know we're a little bit early. I know they're saying maybe by afternoon, but as of now, what are we seeing?
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, the atmosphere is really starting to prime itself right now. Okay. There's actually some storms already firing in Kansas City. So the dew point it's pumping. I would expect a tornado watch to be issued pretty soon here.
Okay.
I think it's kind of game on after about noon. I feel like, after 12 o'clock is when the atmosphere is really going to get unstable. More on this side of the state, or St. Louis, I feel like the prime zone is going to be right about that 2 to 7 or 8 o'clock time frame. It's kind of like days like today are hard because as soon as the storm starts firing, that immediately plays with the dynamics across the whole area. Mm-hmm. So like, it's a very fluid situation.
Absolutely. So what we were just saying, just so we can recap that really briefly, sometime in the afternoon, 2 to 3 o'clock, and then in that 7 to 8 range is what we in the St. Louis area should be kind of keeping our eye out for.
Yeah, I would say, anytime like 2 or 3 o'clock, starting from about Columbia East, and just like today's just one of those days where like when a storm starts organizing itself, it's gonna rapidly intensify. Yeah. And so days like today, you might not necessarily get that huge warning time. So like it's just a good idea to keep an eye to the sky today, or an eye to the radar, or have multiple ways to get warnings.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I know that what you just hit on was perfect, because in these situations, I mean, it could change on the spur of a moment. And, right now, I mean, are you seeing this, coming in strong, more strong this evening? What part of the day are you seeing us get the kind of the worst of, or the brunt of this storm, if we do get it?
Yeah, I would say late afternoon, early evening.
Awesome.
And not everybody's going to see something.
Right.
Like initially we thought it was going to be that typical linear situation where it would be a full solid line of storms rolling through the area like we usually see.
Right.
But today it's kind of more of that high plains intensity of these organized cells that are discrete and separate from each other are going to pop up like popcorn, and whoever happens to be near one of those, it's going to get strong pretty quickly.
Wow. Well, and that's very, very good to know, because, so many times I think we're all used to that linear system. And now with these being in kind of pockets like you were just describing, could those become more dangerous that way because they are, condensed?
Absolutely. That's that's what we call a supercell.
Okay.
Is when it really starts to organize itself and it rapidly intensifies. And those are that's why we're at such a great risk for tornadoes today, is because I hate to say we don't usually see those massive supercells here in St. Louis. I mean, we do. It's just not like ultra common.
Right. And too, I mean, it's always something good to talk about, because we're right at the point too, Jenny, we're in spring and we're getting ready for this very unstable weather that we always are used to seeing in this kind of 2-month period. And that's really good to know. And now with that being said, you already hit on what time we expect this to kind of trickle into St. Louis, or when we could keep our eyes out for pockets or the storm systems. But with that being said, with this heavy rain, are floods an issue in these type of storms, or is it just the tornadoes that we're worried about?
Today, definitely the biggest threat is tornado.
Okay.
Also large hail, because there's going to be a lot of updrafting going on. Flooding, I would say, typical of any like intense downpour, there could be like a very small flash flood, especially in like urban areas where like the storm drains are kind of clogged. But no like widespread long-term flooding situation like we had, a couple weeks ago.
Right. Because my mind went to last year, Jenny, whenever St. Louis got hit with that monsoon out of nowhere. And that's immediately where I went to. And it's good to know, though. So as of now, tornadoes are the bigger concern, but keep your eye out for those flash flood situations. And with that being said, what are your major concerns about a system like this? Because I'm sure there's so many ins and outs and complexities to these type of storm systems.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I was thinking about it today. It's like, how when you have a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, and like, if you slightly change any ingredient, that's totally going to, affect the taste and what the cookie looks like. So days like today, the components are so volatile. So it's hard to like be specific when, people ask, well, what's it going to do in my backyard? And the weather world, we can just say, we have these ingredients here. We're not exactly specifically sure how they're going to play out. But I'm pretty confident in saying that, like, wherever a storm is going to form, it's going to get strong pretty quickly. Now, the upside to that is hopefully, like I said, not everybody's going to see something. So that's good.
Yeah.
And, some people that might be disappointing that they don't get to see anything. But those that do, there's like, we went from a 5% to a 15% risk of not only, tornadoes, but strong, long track, like, your EF2s, 3s, hopefully not 4s or 5s, risk today, just in like the last, 6 to 8 hours since the Storm Prediction Center last updated their information. So
wow, that's like I said, Jenny, I really appreciate your insights on this, because that, like I said, these are concerns that I really want to make sure that we get out for the community too. And
you can never be too safe,
right? And it's always good to keep in mind on these things. If you could, I hate to throw people on the spot, but this is a kind of a simple one. What are your tips for these type of storm systems? If you're caught up in one, if one's over your neighborhood, which who knows, it might be at one point in time. What's your advice for people to make sure they're in the know and staying safe?
Yeah. Well, don't do what I would do. I would probably go outside.
That's what I would do.
So obviously being underground is the best. If you don't have a basement, the centermost part of your house is the most safe. Like, I've seen so many pictures of homes that, like, the outside has been completely ripped apart, but like that middle-most part of the house is usually still standing. If you're in a mobile home, like days like today, I would, it's just mobile homes are never safe.
Right.
So if you have, like, if you can go to the mall for a few hours, like, somewhere you can go that is going to be a safer situation.
Where we can wait it out if we don't have the structurals that we need. And that's really good to know, because and by the way, when you were talking about that and saying people need to stay inside, I know they don't want to. I don't know what it is about the Midwest that just loves to get out there and watch that darn rain come down and a tornado hit. You drive down my neighborhood, Jenny, I swear you'll see people out there with a Marlboro in their mouth looking up at the storm.
Like,
so cool.
Like, just bring it on,
Right.
Or like my dad, like if it's at nighttime, my dad will be like, well, I'm going to bed. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go.
Yeah.
So,
well, with that being said, we've talked about a lot with this storm, and I really, Jenny, can't thank you enough for your insights on this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, and with that being said, and you're great. Anytime you want to come back on and talk weather or anything, you're more than welcome to. We talked about it being kind of in these pockets, not linear, but does that mean there's still a chance of this being a consistent storm throughout the region? Does that kind of eliminate that consistency at all?
Like, man, it's last I saw.
Okay.
The computer modeling was showing storms popping kind of to the north as kind of a first wave, and then kind of from the south. So it looks, I hate to use the word widespread because it's not going to be widespread.
Right.
But at the same time, like, if we kind of zoom out a little bit between, the eastern half of Missouri and especially through Illinois, that's technically a widespread event. So I just think, anybody, Missouri, Illinois, I don't know, how far the reach is, but Iowa, Arkansas, it's like, a lot of us were just talking about how we don't remember the last time we've seen such a huge area under the gun, basically.
Well, I've never seen a picture like this before, or a graph like that before. When I looked at it, I went, what am I looking at? Because I didn't know. Yeah. And then it's like, wow, we got to get hyper local extreme weather on and talk about this. So with that being said, I mean, spring's here. April 1st is tomorrow. I am so glad I don't have to do a show on April Fool's Day. But the bigger part of this is this going to be the first of many in your guys' mind? Is this going to be a pretty stormy spring? Yeah,
we so put it in your back pocket. Tuesday, Wednesday looks pretty intense too. But as Chad says, one storm at a time. But yeah, like overall, so you've heard of like La Nina and El Nino, right?
Yeah.
So we've been locked into a La Nina pattern for a while, and that's officially starting to go away. We are no longer in La Nina. And so with these neutral kind of situations, we tend to have more active springs. So next week is looking active, and just kind of the general immediate long term. Is that a thing?
I make up those phrases all the time too. Yeah, it sounded great.
Looks pretty active.
Well,
so.
it does. And that's something too, Jenny, that I really want to keep in mind, because I mean, so many teams are playing and so many kids are out there and getting ready to practice. There's a lot of safety issues, here in the spring months. And when you're mentioning Iowa and Arkansas, we might have listeners that have family out there that aren't aware. And it's great to know that and great to have your insights. What's your final takeaway of this storm system today before we let you go?
Today's not the day to not charge your cell phone.
Yes.
Everybody needs to be aware. If you have elderly relatives or friends, people who don't normally pay attention to the weather, just give them a heads up. Especially if you see something starting to go their way, tell them, hey, this could get pretty bad pretty quick, so you might want to hit the deck. So
absolutely. Jenny Clark with Hyperlocal Extreme Weather, filling us in and bringing us in the know on this significant storm system that's predicted for this afternoon. We will keep you guys updated on RiverBender.com with storm updates. And Jenny, thank you guys so much with Hyperlocal Extreme Weather for providing us a really great, insightful, and resourceful conversation each and every time.
My pleasure. It was super fun.
Awesome. We'll have to have you back.
Yes.
You heard it. You guys heard it. We got a rain check on that. All right. No pun intended on the rain check. Didn't think about that. 9:31 on this 31st day of March. Jenny Clark with Hyperlocal Extreme Weather. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more of our daily show after this.